So to those of you who are there listening, we want to say welcome. Say hi to Stephanie.
Hey, everybody.
Good. So while he's setting me up, we can still get started. Tell us a little bit, Stephanie, about yourself and what do you do? Share a little bit so we get a little familiar.
All right. Well, so basically I've been a health educator for the past 15 years. I have a background in psychology, a double master's in health and education. I'm a Reiki level 2 practitioner. I have a background in crisis counseling. I am a certified dream coach, and I am a transformational coach. Um, And basically, my husband and I have a business together called Mind and Body Awakenings that we run together. We're both coaches, and I do a little bit more of my coaching. I specialize specifically in helping women rediscover. I lost you for a sec. Rediscover their purpose after unhealthy relationships. So that's my passion, which we'll be talking about as to why that's my passion. And my husband does his coaching along with something called Psych K, which is a high-speed mindset change, which is awesome because it really helps our clients skip up to the next level, because we all have
Mhm.
those subconscious beliefs that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're not
Mhm.
enough. So he's got this really great ability to be able to dig deep, find out what the root cause is that's causing that negative subconscious belief, and then changing the thought process. So it like kicks everybody up and then gives them a better opportunity to work on the different coaching skills that we work on together.
Oh, wow. You've got quite a background. That's the first thing,
Oh, and I'm
and
writing a book. I forgot to say I'm writing a book. I'm actually doing the whole editing and making a cover and stuff like that. So I'm always very busy. I like to stay
oh,
active.
wow. What's your book about?
It's called Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt. It's stories about codependent relationships.
Uh-huh.
And the great thing about the book is that it's 4 different stories from 4 different backgrounds of people. One of them is myself, so I go into detail about my story. And then the second half of the book is what you can do to rediscover yourself after these unhealthy relationships, or if you're in an unhealthy relationship, how to spot the red flags, or if you're out and you're finally dating again, how to know when those little red flags that we ignore early on,
Hmm.
that those are actually what they are, so we know what to do a little bit better.
Okay, that sounds just about fascinating because we've all had relationships that did not work out, signs that we missed, us, things that we want to kick ourselves for, and stuff like that. So that actually should be a pretty fascinating read. And, you're a lady after my own heart. Keep busy, get those talents out there, and stuff like that. I think that's pretty good. And the fact that you and your husband, that you're a team. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that you both are doing something similar. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
actually pretty cool, you
Yeah,
know?
I think so
But
too. It's great. It's great to have someone who's on the same page as you are.
good. So before we get to the wonderfulness of your guy, we're gonna go back a little bit. You're gonna share with us a little bit of your story, the road that you have traveled, and we we are right here to hear and learn and support. So let's go back to the beginning.
Well, the
You know.
beginning. So I grew up in a military family. We used to move every 2 or 3 years because my dad was in the Air Force. My mom is from France, so I grew up with a French-speaking mother. So I'm bilingual, which is I'm very, very lucky that I get to be able to do that. And so there was a lot of fighting at home, and there was just a lot of arguing and a lot of discord, and that became normal for me. And so when I started dating, which was not until pretty much at the end of high school, my parents didn't want me to date, and I wasn't really allowed to date anybody. And I was trying so hard to fit in and everything else. But when I started dating, I didn't know how to date. So my first boyfriend was a 7.5 year relationship. And he was good up until his father got sick, and then his father passed away. And because I was so used to being supportive, things started to go downhill. But I needed to be supportive and help out my man as he was going through this horrible time. But it started hurting me. He was doing things that were could have gotten him in trouble with the law. He was selling drugs out of the house, and I was trying to become a teacher. And I was like, I can't become a teacher, and you get caught selling drugs out of the house. Like, this is going to ruin my life. So we started sneaking it. And then he started accusing me of cheating and all these terrible things. And I finally, after a really traumatic event with the police being called and him accusing me of cheating and stealing my phone, I ended up kicking him out. And so I threw him out. There was definitely some abuse, but it was definitely more emotional abuse at that point. So I broke it off with him, and he called me, stalked me, harassed me. I would go other places. I would see a car that looked like his, and I would be scared because it becomes so emotionally draining having to deal with someone who was so unable to deal with the death of his father and taking it out on the rest of the world, and himself included, realistically. So time went on. I dated somebody else and had another bad relationship. And then I had a friend of mine that introduced me to his best friend. So I thought he was safe. And we started dating. And my friend said, whatever you do, don't date this guy. And I was like, does he like me? Like, why would he care that much that I'm dating his best friend? So we started dating, and things got bad quickly. And I think there was definitely some red flags telling me run. Some jealousy right away from the beginning, but I think that I had some unresolved guilt from the first major relationship. Like, hey, I left this guy when he needed me. I need to not do this to this guy. And it was subconscious. I didn't even realize that I was doing it. So when there was all these red flags, and it's funny how as you get older, things are so different. But I remember I was 28 years old, and at 28, I was like, oh my God, I'm 28. I'm getting so old. That's so cute now because I'm 40, and I'm like, it's like,
I know, right? Life just begun, girl.
Yeah, it really was. What was I rushing? So, I was 28 years old, and I was like, I'm going to not ever get married. I'm never going to have children. And this guy's really interested in me. I know that there's some things I don't really like about him. He's got a temper. My father has a temper. I think I can deal with it. And that was honestly and I said that out loud to my friends. And so we ended up getting married in this beautiful castle. And I had friends from our family from Europe and family from all over the place that came all the way to visit. And that night of the wedding, we actually stayed in the castle. We had a huge suite with a master bedroom with a 4-post bed and marble everything and gold. I mean, it was absolutely gorgeous, like a fairy tale. And he was running water for the tub. And he got me out of my dress. I went to go in the tub, and some water spilled over the side of the tub. And he said, you're making a mess. And I said, sweetheart, don't worry about it. This is a fancy place. I'm sure they make messes all the time. It's just a little bit of water. There's even a drain on the floor. And he said, you never care about anything, just like you to never care about anything. And I said, honey, let's not ruin the night. This is our wedding night. Well, for the next 3 hours, I was chased around the room, the entire suite, naked.
For fun, right?
I was completely naked in this beautiful suite, and I couldn't leave because I had no clothes on, and because there was water that had spilled on the ground.
Oh,
and he chased me around, told me he was going to try to throw me out the window. He wished I would die, like horrible things. And then I was locked myself in my room, in one of the rooms, and was trying to keep him. He was banging on the door, trying to get in, yelling, screaming, losing his temper. And it culminated with him getting me out of the room, pushing me onto the beautiful 4-post bed and strangling me. And strangling me to the point where I started to lose the feeling in my arms and legs.
This is your wedding night?
My wedding night. The most beautiful day of my life turned into the nightmare of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now he's on top of me strangling me. I give up, and I'm just like, this man's going to kill me. Like, I'm going to die on my wedding night, and this is going to be the way it is. This is the way my story ends. And I stopped fighting. And it's like, if you've ever seen someone get into a fit of rage, there's like a darkness that goes over their eyes, like any light that's there just goes out.
Yep.
And he had that. It was just darkness over me. And all of a sudden, he came back, and he looked at me and stopped what he was doing and just walked away. And I was in shock. I curled myself up in a ball, and I was like, I just married this man. I just had family from Europe come all the way here to support me in my wedding. And I had this beautiful day, and this is how it is. This is not how your wedding night is supposed to be. So I stayed for 5 years. And of course, the promises for anyone who's in a relationship that is abusive, whatever promise they give of it's never going to happen again. It was because I was angry, or because I was stressed out, or because you did this to me. all
Yeah.
of those things. And he was a salesman. He's very good at manipulating.
Mm.
So, there was all of that. And I promised, and I said, okay, I love you. And I felt obligated because I had made the promise to be married to this man. And I thought when you got married, you stayed married. So I was trying everything I could to support my husband. That was really what it was, even though it was killing me. And so for 5 years, I put up with it. I kicked him out of the house one of the time. Like I was spit on, I was thrown into the refrigerator. I was pushed so that I fell and hit my head on the ground. I had the cops called on me because he came in and yelled in my face, and then I scratched him when I was scared waking up. And so he was like, "You're abusing me. I'm going to get back at you." Which when someone's sleeping at 3 o'clock in the morning and the lights get turned on and the sheets pulled off of you, people are going to react in different ways. But the long list of just different things, threatening to have my body thrown into New Jersey so that no one can ever find it. And just the list of threats and everything else. So long story short, I ended up deciding to get a divorce, and it was after just a lot. And I think I'm going to apologize ahead of time because I'm going to use a word that's completely not a nice word. But I was at my second job because he wanted me to work more hours so that he could go back to school. And I was at my second job, and he sent me a text message and said he had quit his job. And I said, "Sweetheart, please go back and get your job back. You were supposed to make good money this day. I really need you to go back," because I was supporting the entire household. And his response, and this is what I'm apologizing for, is he said, "Just like typical cunt bitch Stephanie, not to support her husband."
Oh, wow. Are you kidding me?
Nope. No. So
Wow.
after that, that was my moment. And I said, I read that, and I said, "What the heck am I doing? I am doing everything I can for this man that doesn't appreciate anything that I'm doing, and he's still treating me horribly. I don't deserve this." So I started the divorce process. I had to live with a friend because he would not leave. And I had to go to court more than a few times and deal with all of that. But the weird thing is that after that was finally over, I ended up going through a really major depression. I started having legal issues. I had some grandmother passed, a great guy, but of course my taste in men obviously at that point was awful. And I started dating a guy, and he ghosted me. So he disappeared completely. And then I had a blood clot in my arm, and I lost it. I completely went through an awful depression so that I couldn't get out of bed. I was laying in bed. I would go to work, not be able to eat. I lost like 25 pounds, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. And I would just go to work, come home, get in my pajamas, and lay in bed and just try to watch inspirational videos or anything, and just holding myself laying in bed, just hoping the day would end and that the next day would start. Wow. And yeah, so that was my down point. Like that was my breaking point.
Wow.
And yeah. So
how did you stand that for 5 years though? That's what before you continue, I just want to know, how did you put up with it? Were you scared for your life? I mean, how do you go day to day living with, from your wedding night, you were almost killed because you spilled water.
Yeah.
How did you manage for 5 years?
The thing is that with most abuse victims is that it's not always bad. And when he was good, he was really good. I mean, and the thing, and the sad thing is that I saw the potential, which is something that's actually really positive about me. And that's what makes me a great coach, is that I can see the good in someone and I can help get them to that place. You can't do that when you're married to that person. It's not healthy and it's not good.
That's right.
And they need to see their own, and it's their job to do their work. So, I saw the potential. And when we were good, like it was like we could have been a power couple. Like it was just so great. But he had so much baggage that he had not taken care of from his childhood and his upbringing. And he would go to therapy and then stop going to therapy. But so it would be good, and then it would be not good. And then it would the typical cycle of abuse. It would be that honeymoon period and things were great. It was like, oh, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm doing this to myself, because why would someone Yeah. Why would someone that you
Mhm.
love treat you so badly? It just, a sane person can't comprehend what an insane person is thinking.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
and that's the thing. You're coming from a sane mind, so you're like, well, why would he do that to me? So what am I doing? What can I do to fix it? You know, that's what you think as the victim. And you know, you just kind of get through. But it was getting, I mean, it would get to a point where I wouldn't even want to come home. I would just want to be gone with you know, out with friends, or I'd find extra hours to work, and I would just hope that he was happy when I came home, or if not, we would deal with, you know, sometimes a fight would last for 2 weeks and he would just not let it go, and it would continue. And then once things were finally figured out and he wasn't angry anymore, he didn't want to fight anymore, then it would be great again. But it was like, for him, it was just this cycle, and you could feel it coming. You could feel
Yeah.
the, you know, the tension period. You could feel it when it's like you're walking on eggshells, you know that he's about to crack. And then you try to be a little bit more careful until bam, it happens again. And then the whole cycle starts all over. And I think most people hope that they're going to get it this time. Maybe this
Uh-huh.
time they'll understand that their behavior is not going to be, is not okay, but they don't.
Hmm.
There's actually no time that anyone, and I work actually even with domestic violence victims, there is no time that an abuser ever comes back and realizes they're not going to ever abuse their partner anymore. The only way to
That's
get out of that is to literally get away from that
get
situation.
away. That's right. That is right.
Yeah.
So, did you ever get to the point of finding out what his issue was, or you just had to bail and deal with your own?
I mean, realistically, I think that he had some issues for himself. He was a narcissist,
Mm.
borderline personality disorder, that he wasn't dealing with, and just his own upbringing of his own family. I think that he did not respect women, and that was very obvious in a lot of things that he said about his mother and things like that. And then what he saw from his father, it seemed like that
Mm.
was what was appropriate for him. That was what he grew up with. So for him, as much as there was a lot of disordered thinking for him, it was also what he learned. And you know, so I can, and that's the part of him that I forgive. You know, it's the biggest thing with your own journey is, especially as something that kind of that serious. I have no
Mhm.
ill will towards him. You know, I can see him out and I can give him a hug and say, you know, hey, how are you? There's no ill will. In fact, I'm thankful for all of my lessons. I am very glad I'm not in it anymore, but
And you can imagine.
very much so. But there's no ill will, because I can leave that and I can work
Yeah,
on me and I can be my best version. He's stuck with him forever. He will never be able
true.
to be anyone
That.
but him.
Do you think that at the point, did you realize anything that like flags that you should not have missed? What were some of the things you think you might have raised the red flag, but you kind of ignored it?
Some of the very early on jealousy. I think we were about 4 months in, and he met someone that I had, I guess, dated. And he was a good-looking guy, this guy that I had dated, and I think he was
Mhm.
intimidated by him. So that easily being intimidated by somebody else is not really a good sign. But he was angry at me because I had not correctly introduced him to this guy. And I'm like, it was an awkward situation. I had dated this guy, I'm dating you. It was kind of weird to introduce. I didn't really know what to do.
Mhm.
So I felt like I had done something wrong, because again, I had come from very unhealthy relationships. So I was thinking,
Mhm.
he must be right. I must be doing something wrong. So I really didn't trust my gut. And I think that that is
Mhm.
such an important lesson for women to know, is that there's a reason why you have that gut instinct. There is a reason why there's that little voice in your head that says, don't do that, or get away, or whatever. And I think we've been kind of forced as women growing up to say, I'm
Mhm.
ignoring that voice. I'm not going to listen to what that's saying. And I'm going to stay in that discomfort and force myself doing something I don't really want to do. So that's kind of the way a lot of women are brought up. But there's a reason for it. So if you can actually just say, hey, there's that instinct saying, run the other way, run the other way. That's your fight or flight response. That's your stress response saying, hey, you don't want to stay here and fight. You actually want to get away. It's a lot better for you to run. But I didn't listen to it because I was used to it. So I think the red flags of jealousy, being
Mhm.
intimidated, not being proud of the accomplishments of the partner. I was doing very well for myself. I was making a lot of money. And instead of him trying to raise up to where I was, he was trying to bring me down. So there was jealousy even towards me. So for him, it made him feel better to try to bring me down instead of saying, hey, I'm going to do really well. It was, let's bring her down. Um, and again, just how he talked about his mother. I think that was a huge sign about being disrespectful about his mother, and I ignored it. I didn't think that that was much, but that was a huge red sign or red flag.
I think that a lot of the times women are classed as emotional when we try to tune into our intuition. Everybody tosses aside and say you're being emotional. Women, why are women so emotional? And they make it seem like such a negative thing. So women are afraid to own that, own their voice, own their intuition, own their natural protective instincts, or and stuff like that. And I think sometimes that's what leads us into danger. But and we are moving along. You what made you stay? What is it? Was it your upbringing? Was it a socialization? What was it that made you put up with this for 5 years?
What made me put up with it is because I really, so again, growing up, love was uncomfortable. So, my parents would fight and there was a lot of discord in the house, and there would never be an apology. And I would never see things, you just kind of never knew what was going to happen at home. But I love my parents, and I love them still. But I don't think they ever learned appropriate, healthy love boundaries. They didn't know that. So they weren't able to teach me those things. So their relationship themselves was this very disharmonious type of relationship. And they're still together. They're together in their dysfunction, but they're still together. And I think that, that's normal. So once you get, I always give the example of the frog and the pot. So you have a frog and, they're hanging out, you throw them in boiling water, they're going to jump out. And that's the typical thing for any of us. If we see something immediately, we're going to jump out. The problem with a lot of us is we are that little frog that's put in the bowl, and we turn on the water and we start heating it up. And that frog will boil itself to death because it's slowly heating up. And as humans, we do that. We're amazing at dealing with our surroundings. So we deal with this, and then we deal with this and deal with this. And suddenly we're in this like crazy place somewhere else that we don't even know where we are anymore, because we've been dealing with everything. It's been building us up and we didn't even know that we were doing it. So I think that's really why. It's because I was already used to that discomfort. And then you just kind of deal with it. And every new thing, you're like, okay, so this is what's happening now. I guess I have to deal with this new thing that, that he's my husband. I made a promise in front of God and all of my friends and family that he was my husband and I have to stay with him. And I'm getting older. I mean, I got a divorce, and I remember I was 32 and I was complaining to one of my friends about my husband. And I really didn't complain a lot. There was a lot of shame and guilt. I wasn't sharing a lot of it because I knew that it was wrong. But I also was just so embarrassed because I'm a strong, independent woman. Why am I dealing with a man that's treating me this badly? So there was a lot of that. But I remember being 32 and saying to a friend of mine, hey, I'm 32, I'm getting older. And then I remember turning 33 and I was like, oh, I'm 33, I'm getting older. I might as well just deal with it. And then I ended up getting a divorce at 34, but it was like I started my divorce process about 3 months after my birthday, when I said to myself, wait a minute. I have been saying this to myself for the past 3 years. And my mom actually said something that really stuck with me. And it's something that I actually kind of, when I coach my clients as well, is would you be happy with a life that you are leading if you died today? If today was your last day, could you look back and say, this was the best life that you could have led? And what if that's 50 years from now? Could you do this for 50 years? And it really stuck with me because, and again, and coming from my mother, I know that it's not exactly the healthiest relationship. So I know that there's experience there as well. And I thought to myself, do I want to die and this be the only real relationship that I had, that to not have the real love that I possibly could have? And the answer was no. I didn't want to keep doing that. I didn't want to be 35 and still be saying that I couldn't stand living in this relationship. And realistically, I mean, I was starting to turn more to alcohol, and who knows where I would be now? I mean, he might have killed me. I might have become an alcoholic. I mean, all of those things, because people try to suppress all of those things that are going on. And instead of suppressing, again, there's a reason why we're feeling those feelings. It's a warning to let us know that we're not in a good place. And there was this life that I'm now living that was calling me. It's like I could hear it as clear as a bell. And it was like there is a possibility of just things being so great. Just stop being scared and let go. And that was like such a freeing thought of being like, okay, you know what? It's going to be better than whatever this is, because I can't live this way anymore.
Where did life take you after you'd made that decision?
Well, so I mean, there was definitely there was that my low point of my depression, and then it was like things just weren't moving forward for me, and they were just I was just kind of like going just it was almost like it got worse before it got better, and I had all these health issues and was depressed and all these terrible things, and then I was off for vacation for Christmas, and I came back and I got pink eye, and then 2 days later I sprained my ankle.
Oh.
And I it was actually one of those, it was really kind of interesting because, so I mean, it was literally every 3 weeks for a good 4 months, something really traumatic and awful happened. Like it was like, I mean, it was really like a joke. And I was in the hospital, I was in the emergency room, and who did they call because I sprained my ankle at work? Who did they call? Because who was the emergency number? My ex-husband. So I'm at the emergency room, and and he was actually fine. Like this was actually a point where he was not a bad person to be there. But I'm in the emergency room. My ankle is swollen like a softball, and I'm looking at my ankle. I'm looking at my ex-husband. I'm looking around, and I just start laughing. And my ex-husband is like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm looking around, and like the ER doctor comes in, and he's like, it might be broken. It looks really bad. And I was like, of course. He walks out, and I just keep laughing. And then tears just start streaming down my face. And my ex-husband was like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I get it. I was like, the universe is trying to tell me that I need to make changes. And I am the one who is responsible for my happiness. I can't depend on anybody else. I've been my whole life been trying to make everybody happy and depending on other people to help me with that happiness. I am my own knight in shining armor. I am no longer a victim. This is all my choice. My ankle, I sprained my ankle because my foot had fallen asleep. I mean, that's like a stupid thing for that to happen. And
But it happens.
It does. But it was like, I was like, the power was suddenly just given back to me. And I was reading a book called The Celestine Prophecy. And I went home after being in the emergency room, and I turned the next page, and the main character in the book sprained his ankle. I mean, it was literally the next page. So I'm reading the book, and he sprains his ankle. And in the book, it talks about how energy and how you're responsible for your own happiness and everything else. And I was like, okay, I get it. Right, God, I get it. Thank you. I understand. And I started this journey of self-discovery. And I started really just only doing things that made me happy and following your passion. So if it felt good, I did it, and I just followed it. I started to lead with my heart. And I have to say that once I started really, if things felt good, I went in that direction. If they felt bad, I went in a different direction. I didn't allow myself, even a conversation that I didn't want to have, I walked away from it. I mean, I completely changed from the drama and all the other stuff that was going on. And I literally only did things that felt good. And that I literally felt like the colors were brighter. It was like this I don't know, like veil had been taken off of my face, and it was like I could see the brightness of the world and the beauty in the world that I had not been able to see in so long. And I started to understand what love felt like. I started paying attention to friends that I had that were in healthy relationships. And I remember seeing one of my friends, and I said, this is the first time that I understand what love is. And she said, well, what is it? And I said, it's calm. It's calm. And she's like, you're right. That is what it is. And I was like, I never knew that, because love was never calm to me. Love was always anxiety. It was always a little bit scary, and I never knew what I was going to expect. And I suddenly understood that love should be calm, and you should feel safe and secure. And that journey, it really helped me understand that and really start to know who I was. So I was able to grow and become a full person. And, long story short, I ended up meeting my now husband. I tried to break up with him 3 times because I really liked being single that much.
He's doing that.
Right? And I was like, all this time I was so worried about being alone. And then I was alone, and it was so great. I was like, this is amazing.
I know.
I can do what I want.
I know, right? Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Being
But
single can be pretty awesome.
and it was, and it really, and it, you know, my husband laughs. He's like, "Really, you were going to break up with me that many times?" I'm like, "Yeah," but then I would look at those big, beautiful eyes, and I would say, "I'm missing out on, I'm missing out on something," because he's such a great, genuine guy, and you know,
Mhm.
and one of the great things about him that actually helped me stay and not break up with him the 3 times I was going to, was that I was very honest and the communication was very upfront. I mean, he knew all the things that had gone on in the past. I was still dating other people at first and he was okay with it. He didn't force me to do anything that I didn't want to do. And he said
That's
to
right.
me, I am here for you and I know that you're the one. If you decide that you don't want to be with me, tell me, but I am not dating anybody else. It's fine that you're dating somebody else, but I just want to be your friend. And it was that love without expectation that I, again, had never really experienced before. So his ability to just give love without expectations and knowing that I might not decide to be with him. And
Mhm.
that helped him a lot, because if he would have said, "You're going to break up with anyone you're seeing, you're going to do this," I would have run, because at that point in my life, I was not putting up with anything like that anymore.
Exactly. You know, there are a couple of things from your story that I'm noticing. You continued a pattern basically from how you grew up. You said with your parents that there was always turmoil. There was never,
Mm-hmm.
it was not easy. So the love that you saw was not a comfortable thing. And so when you moved into dating or into relationships, you continued that pattern. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I think we need to stop and assess, why is it that we are dating a certain kind of people or in relationships with a certain kind of people, and why we need to change that? Because it's for the very same, the thing you were comfortable with was the thing that was basically putting you in danger.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
sometimes we need to do that. And then you made a very profound statement about the calmness of love. Now there's some people, there are too many people I see who think there must be turmoil, and I used to be one of those persons, because I can identify with that when you talk about wanting to break up with your husband, I was enjoying being single. People think there's something. I used to be scared, like you said, of being alone. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was alone, I didn't want anybody taking it away. So I couldn't
Exactly.
identify.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
that's you. Another thing that you mentioned is how you did not just look for someone to love. You started with you and the friends around you and the world that you live in, and you started to appreciate and connect to that. And that for me is very, very profound. It a lot, we jump from one to the other. We never give ourselves the space and the time to just connect to ourselves, to find out what we really want, really love, and just enjoy us, enjoy the world we live in. And that really does bring, like you say, it's like a veil comes off and the colors are brighter, and all of a sudden you're like a kid just enjoying the simple things and stuff like that. And that is amazing. And that
Mm-hmm.
took you to someone who can now see the value in you and appreciate that. And to go from being almost strangled on your wedding night to someone who just let you be, and that is absolutely, absolutely amazing. I've got a question for you. And for persons who are listening, feel free to post a question if you'd like. I'm sure that Stephanie would not mind answering any of your questions.
Not at all.
Where, how did self-esteem, self-love, self-value, how did it play a part in the experience you had and the transformation that occurred?
Well, I think that, you know, and one of the things also we talked about before was boundaries.
Hmm.
I didn't understand what a boundary was. You know, still to this day, my parents don't understand boundaries. You can try to give them one and they push back. So I had to, through therapy, I had to learn even when they said boundary, I'm like, I don't even know what that means. And I really didn't. I had no idea. um, and the boundaries are so important because it's, you know, that when things get uncomfortable, it's when you say to someone, "Hey, what you're doing is making me uncomfortable. I would appreciate if you could behave in this way." You know, that's like an example of something. But I never learned how to do that. I didn't have the words to be able to express that. And I think that, you know, and I work with teenagers also. And I think that from the time, I mean, I was speaking to a student recently, and she was saying to me, she's been on and off again with her boyfriend for a year and a half. And when I talked to her about boundaries, she even said, she's like, I don't know what that is. She said, I don't have, her father is not around. She's like, so I don't know what it's like to have a relationship with a man. I don't see that. And she's like, all I want him is to love me. And so there's that combination of the boundaries. But here's a 17-year-old telling me this. And all I'm thinking, here I was at 30, 32. I just wanted him to love me. You know, so it was the same thing. And that self-esteem is so important, because I was doing some research before, you know, before we came on. And it's interesting how, and some of these numbers are crazy. Only 24% of women in America believe that they feel good about themselves. 24%. 24%. Another one said 5 out of 10 women will not do something or not stand true to their instinct based on how they look that day. You know, so if they're not feeling good in their skin that day, they're not going to keep to a decision. They're going to let somebody else make the decision for them. 9/10 of women will not go out because they don't like what they look like. So if their dress isn't perfect, they're not going to go out and to see their friends. It talked about how self-esteem, if girls are taught have high self-esteem, 3/4 of those girls will have more, girls who have more self-esteem are 3 times more likely not to engage in sexual intercourse under the age of 18. So there's all of these things, that self-esteem of that feeling good in your skin, you know, is even keeping us from some of the basic things. I mean, CEOs, women, like the high S&P 500 companies, only, what was the number? It was like, 4.2%. Only 4.2% of those CEOs are women. And so, you know, there's just this thing of women in general, we have not been given the tools to express ourselves. We compare ourselves to high-powered men when we should be comparing ourselves to ourselves, or looking for inspiration from other women. And we don't need to be like men. We don't need to be like men. We need to be like ourselves. And we need to, you know, women, we need to get together and help each other out and pick each other up and not compare ourselves to other people, because we're not other people. You know, we're all beautiful in our own ways.
In our own way. And you know, you're saying that, and I was having some of my best conversations occur in the gym, strangely enough. And we were having a conversation about the same thing, that women, they aren't taught how to use it. Was my daughter is 10 months old, and when she gets frustrated, I'm like, use your words, baby. I mean, she's not speaking yet, but I am trying to send a message that you've got a voice. It is valuable, and so you need to learn to articulate and the sound of that voice. A lot of the times as women, our voice is suppressed. We are taught to suppress our voice. There's no value there. We are a weaker vessel. You know, all the things that you hear come down the line about women, and so the percentages don't really surprise me. The question I have is, what is the right look? We are so diverse all across the globe. We are so diverse. What I do not understand is if I look nothing like any of my friends. Gosh, I don't even look like my mom nor my sister. How do I try to make myself like how do I compare myself to that? How do I compare myself to anybody? What is the standard, and why has that standard been created? Why are we killing ourselves to live up to this standard? Why on earth are we so scared to step outside and say, look, maybe that worked for y'all over there, but it isn't working for me, and embrace that uniqueness about ourselves. Our voices, that's such a profound thing. That really moves me, because we have unique voices. I don't care, even twins. when people look so much alike, are so different innately, why are we trying to conform? And this is why we end up in the relationships that are killing us, whether it be friendship, just a friendship, whether it be a significant other, even with our families. We, like you said, we allow them to tell us everything they want to tell us, do whatever, demand all kind of things from us, and we never put our foot down and say, enough, because I am unhappy doing this. We feel like, one of the biggest struggles for me was, my mom wasn't a horrible mom. She really wasn't. But my mom did what she knew based on her experience, what she'd been taught. But some of it was taxing for me. And it was tough to tell my very nice mom no at some point. Learning to say no to my mother because this was your mother. You don't mess with mamas. It was hard for me to say no to my mom, to my brother, to my sister. You've been conditioned so well to say yes, to obey, and stuff like that. But the moment that I did, something broke. And so you start practicing it more and more, and then others you're able to say no to, because if you're able to say no to the important people in your life, the most influential people in your life, when you feel like it should be no, it becomes easier for the others out there. And we deserve that. I think we need to understand we deserve our voice, we deserve our esteem, we deserve to love ourselves.
And just as you're talking, I'm watching your light just shine. And that's one of the things that I find is that it's when you really look at another person with your heart and see them for their soul, as opposed to, this is a vessel that carries our soul around. So if we can look at each person with on their soul level and look at the love and the joy that's there in that other person and see that, and that the expression, that's where you get to, even because you can meet the most attractive person in the world and they start talking and you're like, you're not so attractive anymore. And you can meet someone that's like, maybe by society standards, okay, but they talk and their light shines through and there's just something about them that attracts you to them. You just you want to be around them. You want to be in their presence. That's really what we need to keep reminding each other and ourselves. It's about our light. It's not about anything else. We get old, this goes away, that none of this matters anymore. It's what's here that's the priority.
That's right. And that was another thought that we were having in the gym, that the most authentic experiences you have is when you can see you call it seeing their light. I call it seeing people in their context. Everyone they have their unique context. And when you can put aside your perceptions, your ideals, and just see an individual in their context, you see the reality of that person, and that's where true connection occurs. And there is nothing more rewarding than a heart connection with an individual, and it could be a stranger. But when you can see the truth of a person, then we begin to live.
And I love that. That's one of my favorite things, is being able to see the experience through somebody else's eyes. And just to go back, I think back sometimes, I said this to my husband last year. I said, sometimes I feel almost like my husband killed me and here I am living in heaven. And, hell is a place we create ourselves. And, not to get into religion or anything else, but there is hell on earth, of this awful place that we create by allowing ourselves to stay there. And I think back, had I stayed living in that place, had I stayed living like that, I wouldn't get to experience the amazing that I get to experience. And I think whenever I think about it, it makes me cry, because I think of all the other women, all the other people that are trapped and feel like there's nothing they can do and they're missing out. And I know they're missing out because here I am living such a happy, joyful, wonderful, I have an amazing 2-year-old son. I have everything I'm asking for is being given to me. And
I know.
And I wouldn't have. If I would have stayed there, I would still be sad. I would still be coming around the corner wishing that my husband wasn't home. I would still be, walking on eggshells and not being my best version of myself. And, it's just, I want to be able to help other people get here, because it actually helps the rest of the world. If we all can have good
That's
self-esteem,
right.
if we all can feel good, we can become our best versions, and we all can be better, and that helps everybody. I mean, there's nothing
I
negative about
know.
helping each other out.
That's right. And where the fear came from about actually being able to extend a hand, especially women, it often hurts my heart when women have an issue really sincerely helping another woman. I
Mm-hmm.
saw a thought this week that said, queens help each other to fix their crown and polish their crown. So you help the other person to polish their crown and straighten it a bit. I do not know where that whole fear came from about extending a hand to another woman. The world is big enough for all of us, for all of our lights to shine. It will, you will not be outdone. I think that a lot of the times we see only a small portion of the world, and so we think, I gotta grab this and keep it all for myself, when
Mm-hmm.
we need to see bigger and beyond that, you know? So we really need to learn. And I think when our self-esteem, when we have healthy self-esteem, we have less of an issue extending a hand to someone else, because we know it does not take away our value. And you know, we have a comment here from Lisette that talks about that she realized she don't fight for her goals or stand her ground if she doesn't like what she see in the mirror on that day, which is pretty much what you said. And she
Yeah.
said it's really silly, since she is the same person whether she's put together or
Mm-hmm.
not. And
Yep.
it's the truth. We gotta stop comparing ourselves to some whack ideal that nobody really lives up to.
And why would we not deserve love? Because then it
Why?
goes back to
Yeah.
the, why would we not deserve love because we're not attractive? I mean, that's silly. And I find, like, to go on what you said also, the more that I give, the more I get back. And I don't
That's right.
expect anything. And I think that's what's so important. I have no expectations. I just know that
Hmm.
I am the happiest when I'm giving. And
That's
I
right.
happen to get a lot back also. But it also makes me see the world differently, where there's I hear people that are angry and negative, and they're stuck, they're trapped as the victim. They're still blaming significant
Hmm.
others or families for how bad their life is now, or
Hmm.
and they're stuck in their problem, whatever their problem is. And I don't experience life that way. To me, life, all I see, and not that there isn't a lot of things going on in the world, but all I see is beauty. I meet wonderful, amazing people all the time, because
That's
I
right.
like to go out and extend a hand and chat,
Hmm.
and I like to know people from the heart level. Like, I love those conversations. So I think it's, we see the world in through our own mirror. I mean, it's whenever we're saying the world is this, the world is that, we got to take a mirror and look at ourselves,
That's
because
right.
what's going on in our own mind that everything is so
Hmm.
gray and black? Why is it that it's a negative, connotation with what the world is, when if we're in coming from a happy place, a place of, of abundance and joy, we see that in the world around us. So the place of lack is really what's keeping us down.
Good. And I love the statement that you made. We deserve love. Why is it you think you don't deserve love? You are not happy. It is so much turmoil. Why is it that you are just holding on? It's like hot coals. Why am I insisting on holding hot coals in my hand? It's burning.
Yeah.
It's not comfortable. It is horrible. It's
Mhm.
damaging to me. But yet I insist this is the coal I want to hold, when I could very well maybe get a nice little sparkler and it's all pretty and it does not hurt. But it would take bravery to just toss aside, let go. You mentioned that a couple of times tonight, letting go. And
Mhm.
I think that's something we've yet to learn to master, the art of letting go. It doesn't mean we failed. It means that we realize this was not our avenue for success. So let me abandon this one and seek out my avenue where I can find the success, the love, the acceptance that I so deserve. You know, Stephanie, you really do have an amazing, amazing story. And based on that, your exchange, I can only imagine the quality that you offer to your clients, and I think they'll be pretty blessed and lucky to have you, you
Thank
know,
you.
walk that path with them. Is there anything else, I mean, that you'd like to share? You gave us, wow, your story is still reeling in my head. I mean, from the fairy tale wedding to the, oh my God, he's gonna kill me on my wedding night, to years later, I need to escape this. And it all started because you were conditioned to think that love was not comfortable. Love made you upset. Love you had to fight for. And now you're experiencing. Tell us a little bit more about your now experience with love and relationship. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, so I mean, now at this point, I mean, love is, you know, to be able to sit in the room with someone and just feel a peace,
Oh,
and that
mm-hmm.
you know, being able to talk about everything and anything, and you know, I realize how much, even there were times where I probably kept from my ex-husband just thoughts or ideas because I was afraid of how he would react. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how he would react. So, you know, and so there was a little bit for me because I couldn't be safe in that relationship. Now, anything and everything goes. I'm not afraid to tell my husband my deepest, darkest secrets. I mean, he knows everything. We can share everything. You know, there's those slight moments where I go back to my old pattern of saying, ooh, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. There's something that's, you know, we're not getting along. I need to be quiet and not say anything. And as soon as I feel that now, I say it. I say out loud, ooh, I'm feeling uncomfortable. There's something going on. We need to talk about it. And he's like, okay, all right, so let's talk about it. Or I'm someone that now, like, I want to talk about it right away. He wants to, let's talk about it, and then let's revisit it tomorrow after I can think about it. So even just finding that way
Mm-hmm.
of communicating, because everyone's a little bit different, you know, and it's not that anyone's wrong or right in that
That's
sense,
right.
because it's, as
That's
long as
right.
it's healthy. But really finding what that dance that works well with communication with each other. So, you know, being able to express yourself and really to be supportive. I mean, I don't think, my ex-husband used to go out in public and tell me that I needed to stop talking because I was embarrassing him because I was talking too much, or that people didn't want to hear what I had to say. And, you know, that's one of the things about me that's me. And that he was trying to take away something that's me. Now, and my husband is like, he's like, that's one of the things, I think that's so cool. I love that you go talk to people. I love that you're friendly. I love that you know, can
I
go into any room.
know,
Yeah, right? And those are all positive things. But my ex-husband didn't think that. So instead of,
right?
like, you know, for anyone who's watching, instead of trying to fit, you know, a square peg into a round hole, if someone keeps telling you that what you're doing isn't right and not good and whatever, it's not that there's something wrong with you. And they could even be a great guy. They might not even be abusive. You know, that's one of the things too that I learned while I actually did date for the little while. I ended up starting, once I became healthy in myself, I started to attract healthier people.
Is there anything else before we wrap up that you would like to say, to share to the listeners about what you
I
do,
think,
who
you
you
know,
are?
the last thing, even to just kind of add on to that, is that one of the biggest misnomers that I hear people say is, I am looking for my other half.
Uh,
And I cringe when I hear people say
mm,
that, because
mm,
you're not two people, you know,
incomplete.
you're not, yeah, it's like atoms connect together, and if they're not, you know, with the right amount of you know, whatever, atoms or
Yeah.
whatever, all the stuff going on there, if there's not molecules, if there's not enough molecules, that atom is like moving around, and it still
That's
fits
right.
together, the atom still fits together, but it's like moving around in intervals.
Exactly. Exactly.
When you are a full person and you are complete in who you are, you know who you are, you're comfortable in yourself, you will attract another full person who is comfortable in their self. And then when you do come together, it's not from a place of lack. It's from
That's
a
right.
place of, I know who I am strong in who I am. The other person is strong and knows who they are. And now you hold hands and bring each other forward. You're walking hand in hand together,
Exactly.
as opposed to, you know, like for me and before, I was like, oh, you have this great possibility, I'm going to help you get to where I am. But instead, it was like I was like a bird trying to soar, and they were pulling me down like a lead weight. So, you know, really, really, really important to get strong in yourself, work on your boundaries, work on your
That's right.
self-esteem, feel good about yourself, know who you are, before you make a commitment to someone else. And then if you've only had experiences with bad relationships, it's time to really look within and say, hey, what can I do to make myself stronger? Because once you're where you need to be, you will attract the person that you're looking for.
Thank you so very much, Stephanie. Do you have a Facebook group or anything of that nature that maybe anyone want to check out? They can hop
Yeah,
on
I would
over
love
to check it
if
out.
anybody. I actually have a Facebook group called Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt," and I can put it in the comments afterwards. I also have a group called Mind and Body Awakenings, which is the name of the business that my husband and I run together. And of course, we're actually in the process of redoing our logo and branding. But you can check out our website of where it is right now at www.mindandbodyawakenings.com. And I actually have a group coaching, online group coaching, like intense group coaching that's actually starting tomorrow. But if anybody's interested in, getting into that, like really transformational daily assessments and daily accountability group, we would love to have you be a part of that.
Thank you so very much for joining us, Stephanie. It has been absolutely fabulous. I am so happy that you've been able, that you jumped on the opportunity to share. She did not hesitate, guys, and I am so happy. Something just went like click, click, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take it. So I'm really happy to have had you. You've added serious value to this workshop, and I cannot thank you enough for your contribution. So do drop your link in the comments, so that the individuals can check you out and see what's going on.
And thank you so much for this whole summit that you're doing. I mean, keep that light shining and keep doing what you're doing, because we need more of this. This is a beautiful experience. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Take care. Bye, everybody. It was nice talking.
All right. Bye, Stephanie.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. So that brings us to the end of another session, and it was absolutely fabulous. You've got to go back to the beginning. Make sure that you do not miss a moment of this. If you do have a question, drop it in the comment section. Stephanie would be more than happy to answer your questions. Feel free. This is the group Unleash. We are about growth. We are about letting our inner light shine. We are about the best of us coming forth, and this is the safe space for you to be able to do that. As coaches, this is our passion. This is our life. We're here to help you. We are here to extend a hand when you need it. So making relationships great, unmasking relationships. It has been an absolute pleasure. Make sure you go back and listen to this video. Awesome stuff all over. Make some notes. Let us know your questions. Thank you for joining us, and have a good night.